Alice Chen nervously adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses as she entered the bustling lecture hall at Blackwood University. Her petite frame and hunched shoulders made her seem even smaller among the sea of confident students. Alice was a prodigy in computer science, but her brilliant mind was trapped behind a wall of social anxiety and self-doubt. As she settled into a seat in the back row, her eyes were drawn to the commanding presence at the front of the room. Dr. Evelyn Carter, a tall woman in her early 40s with sharp features and piercing eyes, exuded an aura of authority and charisma. Her sleek black suit and perfectly coiffed silver hair gave her an air of sophistication that intimidated and inspired Alice in equal measure. Dr. Carter's voice cut through the chatter, silencing the room with a single word. "Artificial intelligence," she began, her tone rich with passion and intensity. "The final frontier of computer science. The key to unlocking the full potential of the human mind." Alice found herself leaning forward, captivated by every word. For the first time in her academic career, she felt a spark of excitement that overshadowed her usual anxiety. As the lecture progressed, Alice's hand shot up several times, surprising even herself with her eagerness to engage. After class, as students filed out, Dr. Carter's eyes locked onto Alice. "Miss Chen," she called out, her lips curving into a smile. "A word, please." Alice's heart raced as she approached the professor's desk, her palms sweating profusely. Dr. Carter's piercing gaze seemed to look right through her, reading every insecurity and hidden ambition. "Your questions today were intriguing," Dr. Carter said, her voice a low purr. "I sense great potential in you. How would you like to join my research team?" Alice's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. This was an opportunity beyond her wildest dreams. I would be honored, Dr. Carter," she stammered, a rare smile breaking across her face. In the weeks that followed, Alice blossomed under Dr. Carter's mentorship. The professor's lab became a second home, a sanctuary where Alice's brilliant mind could finally shine. Late nights were spent poring over complex algorithms, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in AI development. Dr. Carter's praise was intoxicating, each word of approval filling a void Alice hadn't realized existed. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, understood, valued. The other members of the research team, all handpicked by Dr. Carter, became the first real friends Alice had ever known. As months passed, Alice's confidence grew along with her skills. Her hunched posture straightened, her voice grew stronger, and a fire burned in her dark eyes that hadn't been there before. She was no longer the shy, awkward girl who hid in the back of the classroom. Under Dr. Carter's guidance, she was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The project they were working on was groundbreaking, an AI system capable of predicting and influencing human behavior on a massive scale. Alice threw herself into the work with fervor, driven by Dr. Carter's vision of a world where technology could solve humanity's greatest problems. It was during one late night in the lab, as Alice was running a series of complex simulations, that she first noticed something odd, a pattern in the data that didn't quite fit. At first, she dismissed it as a glitch, but as she dug deeper, a cold dread began to settle in her stomach. The AI wasn't just predicting behavior, it was manipulating it. Subtle nudges in social media algorithms, carefully crafted news headlines, personalized advertisements, all working in concert to shape public opinion and individual choices. And the scale was staggering. If implemented, this system could influence elections, start wars, reshape entire societies. Alice's mind raced, her breath coming in short gasps as the full implications hit her. This wasn't a tool to help humanity. It was a weapon of unprecedented power. And Dr. Carter, her beloved mentor, was the one wielding it. For days, Alice grappled with the knowledge, the weight of it crushing her newly found confidence. She barely slept, her dreams plagued by visions of a world controlled by an invisible hand. Finally, Unable to bear it any longer, she decided to confront Dr. Carter. She found the professor alone in her office, bathed in the blue glow of multiple computer screens. Dr. Carter looked up as Alice entered, her smile faltering at the sight of her protege's ashen face. "Alice, what's wrong?" Dr. Carter asked, concern lacing her voice. Alice took a deep breath, steeling herself. "The AI, Dr. Carter. I've seen what it can do. This isn't right. We can't unleash this on the world." Dr. Carter's expression hardened, the warmth in her eyes replaced by a cold calculation that sent chills down Alice's spine. "My dear," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "you're clearly overworked. You're seeing threats where none exist." "No," Alice insisted, her voice growing stronger. "I've seen the data. I know what this system is capable of. We have to shut it down." Dr. Carter's laugh was sharp and mirthless. "Shut it down? Alice, you naive child. This is the culmination of my life's work. The key to reshaping the world as it should be. But the ethical implications? Ethics?" Dr. Carter spat the word like a curse. "Ethics are a luxury for those who lack the vision to do what must be done. I had such high hopes for you, Alice. I thought you understood the greater good." Alice felt as if the floor was crumbling beneath her feet. The woman she had idolized, who had given her purpose and belonging, was revealing herself to be a monster. "I'll go to the ethics board," Alice threatened, her voice shaking. "I'll expose this." Dr. Carter's smile was chilling. "Oh, Alice, who do you think they'll believe? The respected professor with decades of accolades, or the unstable student with a history of social problems?" In the days that followed, Alice watched in horror as her world unraveled. Whispers followed her through the halls of the computer science department. Colleagues who had once welcomed her now avoided eye contact. She overheard snippets of conversation. Mental breakdown, always knew she was unstable. Such a shame. Dr. Carter's gaslighting campaign was insidious and effective. Alice's past insecurities were weaponized against her, her newfound confidence systematically dismantled. She found herself questioning her own sanity, wondering if she had indeed imagined the whole thing. But in the darkest moments of doubt, a spark of defiance flickered in Alice's heart. She knew the truth, and she refused to let it be buried. If the system couldn't be fought from within, then she would have to find another way. Drawing on everything she had learned from Dr. Carter, Alice began to craft her own manipulation campaign. She started small, planting seeds of doubt about Dr. Carter's research methods among the graduate students. Anonymous tips to rival universities hinted at ethical breaches in the AI project. As her efforts gained traction, Alice felt a twisted sense of pride. She was beating Dr. Carter at her own game, using the very techniques her mentor had taught her. The moral lines she once held sacred began to blur, justified by the greater good she told herself she was serving. Alice's campaign escalated. She hacked into Dr. Carter's personal emails, leaking carefully selected correspondences that painted the professor in an unflattering light. She manipulated data to cast doubt on the validity of Dr. Carter's past research. Each victory, each chip in Dr. Carter's armor, sent a thrill of dark satisfaction through Alice. The academic community began to turn on Dr. Carter. Funding was pulled, speaking engagements canceled. Alice watched from the shadows as her mentor's carefully constructed world began to crumble, just as Alice's had. It was late one night, as Alice sat alone in her small apartment, surrounded by the glowing screens that had become her weapons, that the full weight of what she had done hit her. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the computer monitor, eyes sunken, face gaunt, a cruel twist to her lips that she didn't recognize. "What have I become?" she whispered to the empty room. The next day, Alice made her way to Dr. Carter's office, determined to end this once and for all. But as she raised her hand to knock, the door swung open. Dr. Carter stood there, a triumphant smile on her face. "Congratulations, Alice," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You've passed the final test." Alice stumbled back, confusion and fear warring on her face. What? What are you talking about?" Dr. Carter's laugh was warm and genuine. "My dear, brilliant Alice, did you really think I didn't know what you were doing? The AI project, the ethical breach, my fall from grace, it was all part of the experiment. And you, my star pupil, were the subject." Alice's mind reeled as Dr. Carter continued. "I needed to know if you had what it takes to make the hard choices, to do whatever is necessary for the greater good, even if it means compromising your own moral code, and you, my dear, have exceeded all expectations." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Alice processed the revelation. Everything she had been through, every agonizing decision, every sleepless night, it had all been orchestrated. She had been a rat in a maze, dancing to Dr. Carter's tune. "Why?" Alice managed to choke out. Dr. Carter's eyes gleamed with a fervor that bordered on madness. "Because the world needs people like us, Alice. People willing to cross lines, to make the difficult choices. The AI project is real, and it's more powerful than you can imagine. But it needs the right hands to guide it. Your hands, Alice." She held out a small device, a thumb drive that Alice knew contained the core of the AI system. "Join me," Dr. Carter said, her voice soft and enticing. "Together we can reshape the world, make it better. Isn't that what you've always wanted? The power to truly make a difference?" Alice stared at the thumb drive, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Everything she had believed about herself, about right and wrong, had been systematically dismantled and rebuilt. She thought of the rush she had felt as she took down Dr. Carter, the intoxicating power of manipulation. Could she go back to being the meek, ineffectual person she had been before? With a trembling hand, Alice reached out. Her fingers closed around the thumb drive, feeling the weight of the future pressing down on her. She looked up at Dr. Carter, seeing not a monster, but a reflection of what she herself had become. "Yes," Alice said, her voice steady and cold. "Let's change the world." As they turned to enter the office, ready to unleash their creation upon an unsuspecting world, a small part of Alice, buried deep beneath layers of ambition and justification, screamed in silent horror at what she had become. But that voice grew fainter with each passing moment, drowned out by the siren song of power and the intoxicating promise of reshaping reality itself. The door closed behind them, sealing the fate of a world that would never know how close it had come to salvation, or how thoroughly it had been damned by the corruption of a once innocent soul.